Data overview for the ELA department of Sandy Springs Middle School. My name is Tarver Bechtel, and I will be presenting this data overview for you today. First, we're going to begin with our purpose for this presentation. The presentation purpose is to review the demographic data from the last 3 years, as well as review some student achievement data from the last 2 to 3 years. We are going to work to determine some areas in need of improvement in ELA, as well as determining strengths and weaknesses for ELA department based on the data over the last 3 years. Some questions to consider while reviewing the data. What are the current strengths? What are the current weaknesses? What groups are not progressing in ELA? What groups are stagnant? And what can all teachers do to help students move up a learner level? With our student demographic overview. As you can see, student enrollment has steadily increased over the last 3 years, with 860 students for the 2015-16 school year, with 909 students in our 2017-2018 school year. Our student enrollment by grade level fluctuates as students move up from grade level to grade level. You'll notice that it kind of follows a pattern. It stayed pretty consistent with between 260 to 320 students in each grade level, increasing to the most students in our 17-18 school year. As well as our enrollment by gender. As you'll notice, it's pretty even with male, female, more male students each year, with again 17-18 school year having over 500 male students in our student body. And then if we look at our enrollment by ethnicity, our Black population is by far our largest population, with this most recent year having 475 African American students, and that's increasing steadily, as well as the Hispanic population. Multiracial and Asian Islander population has stayed pretty much the same, with the white population fluctuating between 160 and 180. Our special groups. As you can see, I'll define them real quick with English language learners being in blue, our students with disabilities being in orange, and economically disadvantaged in the gray. As you can see, the majority of our population is economically disadvantaged, with more than 3/4 of our school population falling in that economically disadvantaged free and reduced lunch qualification. This has a significant impact on student learning, as well as discipline, attendance, and can all kind of roll into one. So I want you to think about that as we continue to look at this data today. Student attendance. So this is the percent of students with 6 or more absences over the last 3 years. And taking into account we do have a 15% mobility rate as well. So as you can see, we had a large increase from over the last 3 school years, with almost 38% of our student population missing 6 or more days of school. And then looking again at how missing school can influence students, you'll notice that our ISS and OSS numbers have increased significantly over the last 3 years, with over 400 days spent out of school for some students. And these could be repeat offenders, as well as days spent like 10 or more days out, but that's still a significant number. And then as well, not necessarily demographics, but wanted to bring up our middle school CCRPI scores. As you can see, we have, with SSCMS being on the Left, Fulton County in the middle, and Georgia on the right. SSCMS is steadily increasing those CCRPI scores as those indicators have changed over the last couple of years, as well as Georgia Milestones and how they use achievement and growth. But it's still an awesome achievement to be aligned right with Fulton County, above the state of Georgia, and really increasing that CCRPI. Now let's look at our teacher overview. What are the demographics of our teachers? You'll see that we have a large white teacher population, as well as African American teachers, with a few Hispanic and Asian teachers in there as well. These numbers have stayed consistent pretty much throughout the years that you'll notice. And this is only focused on teachers. This is not personnel, and this is not administration wanting to focus solely on certified and non-certified teachers. And then the teachers by gender, the female to male ratio has stayed pretty much the same, with between 49 to 50 female teachers and 19 to 20 male teachers. And then the teachers by the level of degree. For the most part, this is a significant plus for our school. The majority of or a larger percentage of teachers have a master's degree or higher. So we'll see that has stayed about the same throughout the year. And then when we look at teachers by years of experience, we do have a large portion of our teachers with less than 10 years of experience. And so taking that into account as we are educating our students, we're taking our professional development seriously, and also looking to increase the number of teachers who do have a master's and are working towards that as well. And now we're going to get into the student achievement overview. Looking first at comparing Sandy Springs, Fulton County, and the state of Georgia. As you can see, we're about consistent with Fulton County and the state of Georgia when it comes to the number of students in that beginning percentage, with an increase in the last year of the students in that beginning percentage. So that's something we want to focus on, is lowering the number of students in beginning and developing and pushing them up into proficient and distinguished. And how can we do that? So continue to think about that. You'll see in 2018, we did have the largest number that we've had in the last 2 years of students in that orange and blue, in that beginning and developing, with fewer students falling in proficient and distinguished. And then as we look at our ethnicity, so looking at the ethnicity of our school, it is very diverse. You'll see over the last 2 years, the white population has decreased the amount of students they have in beginning and developing, and increased their number of students in that proficient and distinguished. The Black population, however, as well as the Hispanic, has seen a decrease in distinguished and proficient students, with an increase in our developing. Now, it has seen a little bit of an increase in beginning learners as well, so that's something to look for. And then our milestones by gender. You'll see that in the 16-17 school year, we had over 12% of our female students in the distinguished category. And then in the 17-18 school year, only 8.5%, so that went down significantly, with less than, with an increase in the amount of students in the developing. So those female students went down by a significant amount. So how can we focus on that population? As well, looking at our males, we did see an increase in the amount of male students in the distinguished category, but a decrease in proficient and an increase again in that beginning learner. So if you'll see the 16-17 male went from 24.9% in the beginning to 28%. So that is a significant increase in our beginning learner, when we like to see beginning and developing decreasing each year. And then our special groups. So before we get into them, I have included all our groups. So we'll start from the left to the right with economically disadvantaged versus not economically disadvantaged, English language learner versus non-English language learner, students with disabilities versus students without disabilities. So having those there to compare, how do our students with disabilities compare to our students without disabilities? So if we look at the economically disadvantaged, we did see a decrease again in the amount of students falling within that distinguished category and an increase in developing and beginning learners. So that gap is increasing between our non-economically disadvantaged. So you'll see through all of these special groups that we do have a little bit of an increase in the gaps between the special group and its corresponding group. So again, in the English language learners, we saw non-English language learners, the amount of distinguished increase, and there was not, in the 2017-2018, there was not a distinguished learner in that ELL group. So that gap has again then decreased, or I apologize, increased. And distinguished and proficient learners decreased as well for our students with disabilities. So what happened, as we look through what happened for those special groups over the last 2 years, and then moving forward, how can we focus on those? And then looking at our reading at or above grade level target. So the state has set the grade level target as a Lexile level of 1,097. So this is only for the 8th grade, reading at or above the grade level target. For Sandy Springs, we are at 62.1% of our population, of our 8th grade population is reading at or above that 1097. And it does fall short of both Fulton County and Georgia. So working to move that up and focusing on setting a goal for that grade level target. So as we move into the next part of our presentation, I really want you to focus on Lexile levels in that population. And then finally, looking at our CCR performance targets by subgroup for ELA. So CCRPI indicators set goals each year for where our subgroups will fall. So as you can see, the target adjusts each year, and we are then trying to hit that target. So our students with disabilities and our English learners, though, did not hit in 16-17 that target, but exceeded that target in the 17-18 school year. So that is a big win, and that is something to look forward to, as well as our white and multiracial and Asian Pacific Islander exceeded that goal as well, with Hispanic and Black populations coming very close, as well as economically disadvantaged, to hitting their goal as well. And so obviously with a goal that will increase next year based on our score from this year, but it's something to look forward to try and hit that goal. Now let's move into the data discussion of our presentation. Some strengths that we noticed. Increasing CCRPI score over the last 3 years in line with the county and higher than the state of Georgia school for middle schools. Steady increase in enrollment numbers over the last 3 years. A diverse teacher population with a high degree of education. An increase in proficient and distinguished learners among the white population. And a percent of Hispanic students receiving proficient and distinguished has increased. And then looking at our weaknesses, what do we need to focus on? The proficiency gap is increasing between white students and all other ethnic groups. Attendance in ISS and OSS days have increased over the last 3 years. Black and Hispanic students are performing below proficiency increase from the 16-17 to 17-18 school year. As well as economically disadvantaged, ELLs and students with disabilities are performing below proficiency, and that increase from the 16-17 to 17-18 school year. A high number of teachers with less than 10 years of classroom experience, a decrease in the amount of females performing in the proficient and distinguished category, and the percent of students reading on grade level in the 8th grade is lower than the district and state percentage. So thinking about that, let's look at our next steps. We're going to review and discuss the questions from the beginning of the presentation, as well as take questions. We'll discuss possible causes for some low-performing groups on the ELA milestones and how that influences our Lexile level. We're going to develop an action plan that focuses on some lower-performing groups, specifically focus on that Lexile level, and develop an action plan that focuses on lowering the number of ISS and OSS days overall, as well as looking at attendance and how that influences our scores. Thank you so much for listening. We'll now move into questions. Thank you.